Joe Biden was already known as a king of gaffes before this election cycle. And many people were saying that the best strategy he could possibly implement is to hide. When the coronavirus pandemic started, Joe Biden seemingly disappeared. And while many people criticized this, saying he was being removed from the conversation, many others pointed out it actually might help the guy. They're hoping that people just vote against Trump and not for Biden. So the best possible thing you can do is just let people vote for whatever imaginary version of Biden they have in their heads. Back on April 26th, CNN reported that Biden's invisible campaign is winning. But then the Tara Reade allegations emerged, and this is forcing Joe Biden out of hiding and resulting in Biden, the gaffe king. Well, it's resulting in him looking really bad. It's forcing him to do press where he struggles. Now, of course, I understand Joe Biden was still doing press, but we all kind of understood that the more he did this, the worse things were going to get. On March 25th, Fox News says Joe Biden's gaffe-filled coronavirus media blitz drives negative headlines. And now, following the allegations and Joe Biden's failure to actually address what really happened in a satisfactory manner, many news articles are emerging saying maybe we need to drop Joe Biden. In this article from The Intelligencer, can Democrats force Joe Biden off the ticket? I'll tell you what. Look, I know it's another headline that says the Democrats are panicking, but when you've got your media allies 6 months out from an election saying, can we drop the guy? Yeah, that sounds like panic to me. You tried hiding the feller. It didn't work. He was forced into the light. And now you're saying, you know what, maybe we get rid of him. And I got to tell you what, some of these articles are some of the most hilarious things I've ever seen. Now, we all know they've been saying maybe Andrew Cuomo. Hey, let's be honest. Cuomo's a pretty popular guy. But take a look at this one. A Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama ticket to replace Biden? Is it even possible? Why is it even a question? Now, look, some of these people are Democrat voters and media personalities, so I don't want to pretend like the entirety of the DNC is freaking out or anything. But I'd have to imagine if they're now entertaining this conversation, they're worried. But let's be real. They've probably been worried for a long time, and that's why they try keeping Joe Biden out of the press. They've tried introducing him slowly and in select environments. At one point, CNN actually suggested they do a debate with Joe Biden sitting down. Yes, suffice it to say, they are really worried about this guy being in the spotlight. But I'll tell you what, my favorite article, which proves a lot of this, stay alive Joe Biden. Democrats need little from the frontrunner beyond his corporeal presence. And that's it. Keep the guy hidden. Let everyone imagine the good old days of Barack Obama. And that's how we win. Unfortunately, because of the Tara Reade allegations, it's not working anymore. And now there are many calls in the media, including the New York Times and the Washington Post, saying Joe Biden must step down. So I'll stress it again. If you've got your media allies and some strategists saying 6 months out from a general election, we got to get rid of this guy, man, they are in disarray. Let's read through this and start with the Mika Brzezinski interview. Before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, share this video. YouTube has implemented algorithms to prop up mainstream media. On the autoplay section, the recommended videos on the side of this video, you're probably being shown nothing but Fox News. That means I am facing an uphill battle. And if you like my content, sharing it really does help. Otherwise, if you just want to watch, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and then maybe YouTube will actually recommend my videos to you, or maybe they won't, and eventually I'll just have to stop doing this or something. I don't know, but I appreciate your support anyway. So here's a story from May 1st, hot air. Mika to Biden. So we're supposed to believe all women unless it pertains to you. The allegations against Joe Biden have put Democrats in a serious bind. And I don't mean just Democrats. I mean like the Democratic voter base and the resistance type individuals, as well as the politicians. They, for the longest time, propped up the Me Too, movement and the ideology, including Joe Biden himself. Well, now, in order to remain true to this, even their typical allies, like Mika Brzezinski of MSNBC, well, they're not going to pull their punches. I mean, actually, she kind of did. She didn't go as hard as she could have, but she still put Joe Biden in a serious spot, and it didn't turn out too well for him. I would say, look, hot air is more conservative, but she brings up a good point. I mean, this interview was not good for Biden. Of course, right now, it is still fair to say, within reason, that Joe Biden's invisible campaign is winning. He's polling above Trump. But does the polling really matter? I honestly don't know. Let's look at this article, and then we'll jump back to the Mika Brzezinski, the results of Joe Biden being forced in the limelight. CNN said, a new Fox News poll from Michigan finds former Vice President Joe Biden leading President Donald Trump by a 49 to 41% margin. Other Fox News polls from Florida and Pennsylvania also showed Biden clearly ahead. In all three cases, Biden's doing better than he is in the long-term polling average in those states. What's the point? A lot of Democrats have been hankering for Biden to try to get out, to be more part of the daily media conversation. The latest numbers suggest that these voices are likely wrong. Oh, man. Biden's proving that the less media he receives, the better it is for his electoral prospects. Over the last month and a half, Trump has had the political spotlight shown on him. He's had daily press conferences that the media has extensively covered. Meanwhile, Biden's struggling to attract much of an audience and as he is stuck at home. You can see this really well in media mentions in the top paragraph of stories, as measured by newslibrary.com. 4 years ago, from March 20th to April 20th, Trump had about 65% of the mentions between Hillary Clinton and him. This year, during the same period, Trump's gotten about 90% of the coverage dedicated to Biden or him. I'm going to stop you right there and say, I don't think these polls are right. I think Trump is absolutely steamrolling Joe Biden, as we all thought he would. And the moment Joe Biden actually comes out into the limelight, he looks bad. Listen, man, when Trump was doing his press briefings, his polling was going up rapidly. He had some of the best polling he has ever had. In fact, he did. He broke an all-time record for his approval in the Real Clear Politics polling average. So the media had a collective fit, saying we must stop showing these. Democrats and resistance types on Twitter were saying, shut them down. And they did. And they were right in terms of their strategy. It worked. Following the shutdown of Trump press briefings, his approval rating started to drop, because they realized just airing his briefings was giving him control of the narrative, and they tried pushing back on that. But when Joe Biden steps up, he also loses control of the narrative, and it makes him look bad. You can argue that the polling shows Biden in the lead, but there are a lot of factors to consider from 2016, notably that everybody kind of hated Hillary Clinton. And so whether or not Trump was getting press or not, he ended up winning. I think people underestimated how much the average American disliked Hillary Clinton. But the polling consistently showed Hillary in the lead. So do I believe the polls today, as in individually, are correct? Honestly, I lean towards no. Now, I understand I use these polls too, and there's a natural bias in whether or not someone's going to, believe it or disbelieve it. I try to only use aggregates. I don't always. I'm not perfect, so I deserve some criticism there. But naturally, I look at these polls showing the aggregate of Trump's approval going up, and I think that does mean something. I don't know if it reflects on the entirety of the American voter base, but it certainly does show something. Perhaps there's a bias in the polls for Democrats. If that's the case, and they haven't corrected for this, then I don't think the polls matter if they say Joe Biden's winning. Donald Trump is dominating the narrative. They say there's no such thing as bad press. But let's take a look at the results of that interview he did. Politico writes that Biden was resistant to a search of his records at the University of Delaware. He refused to commit to asking the university to release his documents or even to conduct a search of those documents for Reed's name or complaint. This is a reference to the Reed allegations. Quote, if there is a complaint, the National Archives is where it would be, and that's where it would be filed. And if it's there, put it out. I have never seen it. No one has that I'm aware of. Well, as it turns out, the Secretary of the Senate says they can't actually do that. So what we end up with is Joe Biden stuttering and stammering on TV, struggling to justify why he wants his records sealed. And Unity actually said, well, there's a lot of stuff in there that, could be taken out of context or made to look bad. I'm sorry. Are you saying that people could take your actual record and make it look bad? I get it. Out of context statements and stuff. But maybe Joe Biden should release these documents. It's really funny because right now, this is what we're getting out of this Mika interview. Questions being brought up and a desperate attempt to defend Biden. Biden doesn't want to release his documents. So what do they do? They defer to Trump. They say, well, Trump didn't release his tax documents. Well, my response to that is, thank you for bringing up that argument. I, too, would like to see Donald Trump's tax documents. for whatever reason, but the allegations against him pertaining to his tax documents are vague and quite nebulous. I mean, we don't know why we should see his tax documents. Some people say that he's guilty of certain crimes, but unless you got some serious accusations, specifically, I don't know why we would do that. In this instance, with Joe Biden, we have a direct accusation and potentially the ability to find whether or not there is a document proving that he did this, or at least the complaint exists, and he's resisting. So I'll throw it right back to those resistance Democrat types saying, why won't Trump release his tax returns if he thinks Biden should release his? And I'll just say, okay, have them both release the documents. I don't care. I'd love to see Trump's tax paperwork. And thank you for arguing Joe Biden should also release the documents from the university. This is what you get when you put the man on TV. It doesn't fare well for him. So on March 25th, we saw this story from Fox News. Joe Biden's gaffe-filled coronavirus media blitz drives negative headlines. Yeah, it didn't work out too well for him. Now we're seeing calls for Joe Biden basically to be removed. And it's kind of a 11th hour desperate measure. The Intelligencer writes on May 1st, Tara Reade is making it harder to hide Joe Biden. I kid you not. I want to laugh. Because this is literally their strategy. I'm going back to this. I'm sorry. Stay alive, Joe Biden. Keep the guy alive, make sure he's got a pulse, and hide him in his basement has been the Democrats' plan to beat Trump. You have to be insane to think that will work. I know the polls are showing good things, but I don't think this is an accurate reflection of what's really going on. The idea, I guess, is, people, it's Trump. They either really, really hate him or they really, really like him. Very few people you find in the middle. But look, right now, polling shows from Gallup, again, I know it's one poll, but they show that Trump is favored by independents only slightly. So the more you keep the man on TV, I guess you got to control the narrative. But I guess they think it's going to work. They want to keep the guy alive and keep him hidden. I'm sorry, man. Look, I get it. Conservatives agree. The Washington Examiner said Joe Biden should hide for as long as he can during the pandemic, but he's not. Because even though the Democrats were hoping to hide him and saying hiding Biden and his invisible campaign were working, I mean, Biden still did have to come out. So I'm not going to pretend like he was choosing to do this. I don't think he was. He went on CNN and it was a disaster. There's one viral video where apparently like Hillary was endorsing him or something, and it looks like he fell asleep. The best thing they can do, as they've stated going back a year plus, just keep him out of the public sight. One of the things we heard, right, an easy way to explain why this strategy, why they have this strategy. On the Joe Rogan podcast, one of his guests, I think his name was Owen Smith, said that people long for a return to normalcy. It's a nostalgia campaign. That means they can't actually show you what Joe Biden thinks or what he wants. They're relying on this idea you might have of what things were like. Life was good. We were having fun. We were laughing. That's what they're going for. And when Joe Biden goes on camera and goes on TV, it shatters that narrative. So that's why they need to keep the guy out of sight. But now we're seeing the media turn. I think partly due to the fact that Joe Biden was forced into the limelight in one of the worst possible ways, a serious accusation against him. They just straight up dropped they're going for it. They're going for Plan B, I guess you can call it. That's what the New York Times is saying. Elizabeth Brunig of the New York Times writes in an op-ed, Democrats, it's time to consider a Plan B. Tara Reade's allegations against Joe Biden demand action. And in the story, she concludes by saying, Democrats need to begin formulating an alternative strategy for 2020, one that does not include Mr. Biden. Can Democrats force Joe Biden off the ticket? Like, this is it. The guy's on TV for what, one day over this accusation? Trump has faced how many accusations and they couldn't stop the man. If Joe Biden is being knocked out by one, Donald Trump's going to win. But you know what? I also got to point out, think about the politicians we've earned thus far. Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Look, man, I've never been a big Trump fan in terms of his politics. I think he's a funny guy and he's a good entertainer. And I think he does represent some kind of, absolutely American success for sure. But this is what we're going to have. And now I got to say, for all of the negative things you can say about Trump, placing Joe Biden next to Trump. You ever see that joke on Family Guy where the Griffins get a reality TV show and the TV show hires an ugly woman to stand next to Meg, the daughter, because it makes her look better by comparison? That's what's happening with Joe Biden and Trump. Like, for all of Trump's faults, the way I see it, I mean, at least for me, this is my opinion, right? You might feel differently. By putting Joe Biden next to Trump, you make Trump look infinitely better. It's like, wow, that's the option we have? The guy who can't speak, who's touchy-feely with all these women? There's a really hilarious comedy routine by a guy named Andrew Schultz where he says, here's why you got to vote for Biden. Donald Trump is the guy who says you can, when you're famous, you can grab women. Joe Biden's the guy who actually does it. And that's like actually making Trump look better by comparison. I don't know what, they've tried to spin this against Trump, but I'm telling you, man, you call Trump, they try claiming Trump is mentally ill because Trump says things that are erratic or, just strange, bigly or whatever. And then you put up Joe Biden next to him and Joe Biden can't speak at all. And I'm like, that makes Trump look kind of normal. Then you talk about the accusations against Trump. Then you put Biden up against him and you play the videos of Joe Biden. And I'm like, that also makes Trump look better. I'm telling you, man, they got to hide the guy. The Intelligencer asks, now that Joe Biden has appeared on MSNBC to address the accusations against him, and Reid herself is preparing a response, we're at a whole new phase of the Biden-Reid story or scandal or brouhaha or however you choose to describe it. And because nobody's really ignoring the allegations anymore, the question must arise, particularly for those who believe Reid's accusations. How is the saga to be resolved, assuming no evidentiary smoking gun appears? Well, I guess the answer is simple. Some have speculated this is actually not panic from the Democrats. It's all according to plan. But I'll tell you what. The reason why I think this is more of a frantic, chaotic panic is that I don't think there's a conspiracy here. Some people have suggested, and I did entertain the idea, that Democrats are actually going to use this accusation as an out. They needed to stop Bernie Sanders. They used the nostalgia of Joe Biden, but now they need to find a real candidate, and this is their way to get rid of Biden, who clearly cannot beat Donald Trump. Some have suggested it could in fact be Andrew Cuomo. Democrats want to drop Joe Biden for Andrew Cuomo poll finds. This is from April 10th. And according to NPR, conservative New Yorkers trust Cuomo over Trump on state reopening poll finds. They've repeatedly made these kinds of statements that, Andrew Cuomo is the most popular guy. Here's one from CNN just from May 1st. Andrew Cuomo may be the single most popular politician in America right now. Look, I honestly think Cuomo has a good potential to defeat Donald Trump. But how do you get Cuomo on the ticket? He didn't run. He didn't primary. And now at their very most dire moment, Democrats need a way to get Biden out and get someone else in. Now, I don't know if Cuomo would do it. Apparently, Cuomo said he doesn't want to do it. Some are asking the absurd question of whether it could be a Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama ticket. I guess look how many shares this thing is. It's really 97,000 shares. I guess the general idea is that the Constitution says you can't run for president. The amendment, you can't run twice. So Obama being VP could get him there. I don't know if that makes sense either. I'm not saying Hillary and Obama ticket would win or a Cuomo ticket could win. I think they have a good chance, right? Some people have told me to stop saying the Michelle Obama thing, like, oh, don't entertain it. She can't beat Trump. Look, man, you underestimate how people feel, right? Donald Trump won certain states by slim margins, so do not underestimate. Like to the people who are saying, no, don't say, Michelle, or Barack or whoever could be on the ticket. Don't underestimate your opponents, man. If you think they tried playing underhanded games with Crossfire Hurricane, the Russiagate investigation, you think they'd stop there? Look, it is in my opinion, the things we're hearing about Michael Flynn, if you've been following that story, that he was framed by these rogue agents because they really, really wanted to go after Donald Trump and just kind of destroy him. If you think if they're willing to go that far, don't you think they'd be willing to go the distance of throwing Joe Biden under the bus and dropping Cuomo on the ticket? I know these are all long shots. I'm not going to pretend like I can predict what's going to happen, but I really do think Andrew Cuomo is a strong potential for them now that they have an out. I find it curious, that all of these personalities initially ignored the Reid allegations and then slowly came around. I think the simple solution is that they were boxed, they were put into a corner. They had no choice. These were their principles, and people were now questioning whether or not they actually cared about the things they talked about. All of a sudden, one by one, they start switching and flipping. Then we get this MSNBC interview where Mika Brzezinski, MSNBC of all people, tears into Joe Biden. Now, not in the worst way possible, but enough to cause him serious harm that people are now asking whether or not we should boot this guy from the ticket. And you look back at these stories, there are polls that find people like Cuomo more. Look, man, I don't know if I'd bet a substantial amount of money, but I tell you what, If I was offered a gentleman's bet, meaning just, no real money, I'd be willing to bet they're going to swap out Biden for Cuomo. I'm not saying I know for sure. I know it's kind of a long shot, but we all know Joe Biden will lose. Like, let's be real, man. Donald Trump is wiping. Look, Joe Biden has tried being, they've tried hiding him to a certain extent. And when he's tried to come out to do something with these statements or tweets, because that's really what's happening. The Twitter statements are how they're kind of getting his message out. But he struggles to get any real press attention. There's a meme going around of two soldiers, and one guy is like sleeping with sunglasses on, and the other soldier is dragging him. And they put the media on the soldier dragging Joe Biden. That's the joke. The only reason Joe Biden is actually in this race at all is because there are people in media desperately trying to prop him up. One of the weirdest things I've seen is that when Joe Biden goes on TV and then struggles to say a word, people finish his sentences for him. Even conservatives are doing this. Like, there was one thing Joe Biden said where I can't remember exactly what he said, something about like, when America goes first, they go alone. And it was kind of like an anti-America first sentiment. When he said something like this, he actually stuttered and stammered and said, "What are your, And then I was reading some conservative outlet and they cut out the stuttering and the stammering. And I'm like, stop, don't do that. Put the full quote. The dude didn't have a cohesive thought. He had to string words together and eventually come to a conclusion. Now, what we're seeing from traditional media is this is all they do. Biden will say something like, he'll be asked specifically about like, how do you deal with school funding? And then he'll say a bunch of words that kind of come together and the media will write the headline condensing what they think Biden was trying to say. This is giving him protection. And even with the media doing this, they still can't get past Donald Trump dominating headlines. But it's been good, right? Because that's the argument. Some people want to present a positive image of Biden, meanwhile, keep him hidden as much as possible. Well, mostly because of the Tar Reid allegations, Biden is now front and center. And in response, the media now has to make this choice. So here's the point I want to get to. I think it's a decent possibility they will now swap out Biden for Cuomo. Some people think it'll be Hillary. I really, really don't think so, man. People really don't like that lady, but maybe. I mean, she really wants to be president and she kind of just tries to take whatever she wants. Ultimately, though, I think this is more panic than anything. The fact that they're bringing up Hillary Clinton and Obama, and again, look, I'm not trying to paint a picture that like they're all saying this. This is just one opinion writer. But the fact that we have all of these people, lefties, Democrat voters saying, get him out, get him out, get him out. They're freaking out and they know it. Their own principles were challenged and they tried ignoring it. And when they couldn't ignore it, they said, okay, fine, we'll talk about it. They put out these puff pieces. The Washington Post claimed that it was Trump allies pushing the story. The New York Times said, no, but Trump has been accused more. And it wasn't enough. It didn't work. The allegations and the story came from progressives. In response to this unwinnable fight, they have decided to flip and are in total chaos. I know some people think it's a strategy. I think it was one of Bernie's old staffers that said, don't be surprised if they use this to try and swap, Biden out for someone more popular. I think it's just chaos. They're this close to the election and now they're desperately trying to find someone else to replace the guy. The convention will be chaos if there even is a convention. Biden's delegates will be voting for random who knows what. But I think they may have no choice but to go for Cuomo if they can convince him. Ultimately, I have no idea other than, let me put it this way. We want to believe maybe there's some real strategy behind what the Democrats are doing. I don't buy it. I mean, look, every time they tried to impeach Trump, it resulted in him having a higher approval rating and raising more money. So I certainly wouldn't believe now that they have any cohesive strategy. That just means that we're in a time period where we are sitting just outside of an election. They haven't even been able to run campaign ads for whoever the candidate might be. It may still be Joe Biden, but now their own allies are saying, can we get this guy out of there? Yeah, it's chaos. Meanwhile, you look at the Trump party, the Republican Party and the Trump base, I should say, and they're unified. Donald Trump it is. So look, relatively speaking, the Democrats are in a frantic wad of chaos, and I have no idea what to expect other than I think Biden's going to be removed. Maybe he'll just drop out. Maybe he'll, and you know what they'll do? They'll play something up like, this is us upholding our own principles, which Trump would never do. Joe Biden will say something like, well, I wanted to be president and all that. we must, adhere to our own standards. And for this, I will be, leaving the race. And then they'll put up someone like Cuomo, and that'll be their opportunity to claim that when it comes to issues of Me Too, we are right there, doing the right thing. And they will lord that over Trump all day and night, when in actuality, it's just a bit of chaos and an opportunity to remove the guy. He's not all there. He will never beat Trump in a debate. It would be brutal. So here's their chance. But who knows, man? Because admittedly, look, it is just pandemonium. I don't think they even know what they're going to do. A Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama ticket. Sure, I'd love to see it. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all then.